Welcome to Pucked Up Hockey Moms, where the arenas are freezing, the group chats are unhinged, and the parenting, well, let's just say we're doing our best. I'm Amanda, hockey mom, chaos wrangler, and proud captain of the Bad Mom Squad.
And I'm Brittany, mom of three, two who play hockey, expert at juggling carpools, cold coffee, and the occasional emotional breakdown in the arena parking lot.
We're here to spill the tea on what it really means to raise hockey kids, from politics in the stands to mental health, bad calls, and everything in between. No filters, no fluff, just the truth. With a side of sarcasm.
And yeah, we're laughing through the madness, because if we didn't, we'd be crying into a damp mitt left in the trunk since last season.
So if you've ever screamed, "Move your feet," while secretly Googling the rules mid-game, you're our people.
This is Pucked Up Hockey Moms.
Let's get into it. I'm your host, Amanda.
And I'm Brittany.
And tonight we're lifting the curtain behind scouting. And of course, who's the best guy to talk to about scouting? Well, we're bringing back Scout Steve. Welcome back, Steve.
Hey, thanks for having me again.
Yeah, no problem. We got such great feedback last time, so we thought it'd be great to bring you on back.
Let's give the listeners a quick recap on our last episode. So you're a scout for female hockey at Liberty University in Virginia, a hockey dad, and you just launched an awesome course for parents to help them understand the recruiting process and best steps for their needs. Feel free to add in any more info here that I missed out on.
No, that pretty much is a synopsis in 15 seconds, Brittany. That's kind of where we went with stuff, and then I guess today we're going to go a little deeper and dive into a little bit more of the nitty gritty, because since I last talked to you ladies, we chatted some more offline and realized that there's so much more than we could have covered in one episode.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's so much more to scouting, and I think I had a lot of people ask about the process and wanting to know more, and some have taken your course too, which is great. So yeah, we thought we'd hop on, and I know you're a pro in the female side, so we might as well talk about the female side.
Okay. We have our own website with easy checkout. You can find us at www.aaahockeyrecruiting.com. And we've had some good traction in the market. Now that June 15th deadline is passed, it's really important for females looking at the NCAA route. It's important those kids that just finished their grade 10 or even that are in grade 11, that they get educated and get to work. So even though, if that course isn't right for you, that's okay. It was done out of a passion and not to get rich. I just see a lot of families that make a lot of mistakes, and that course is kind of a DIY for someone, or, for others, maybe a hockey advisor is more the route they want to take. But, if you want to avoid a lot of expense in that, our course might be the right thing for you.
Awesome. And like we said, we wanted to dive a little bit deeper and see what that looks like. So obviously we need you to take the lead, because we have no idea what that means, what that looks like. So we'd love to see kind of like at a showcase what it looks like when you're looking at players, and then to the end process of them getting signed or registered or whatnot to a school or a team or whatnot.
Yeah, perfect. Well, that's a really broad question, and so there's a lot. There's so much more involved than a parent or even a kid might actually think of until they actually immerse themselves in the process. Yeah. To give a really good example of what's happening in our world right now, we're less than 6 weeks out from going to a big showcase tournament that happens over the summer. It's called the Women's Beantown Classic, put on by Rush Hockey, and it's in Marlborough, Massachusetts, which is not far from Boston. If you wanted to kind of think of a day in the life of a scout sort of thing, that tournament goes from a Friday to a Sunday, as most tournaments do. So normally around noon on the Thursday, I'll go and pick up the rental car to go down there and basically get in probably around 6:30. I always get the same hotel when I go to Beantown. I'm a bit of a superstitious guy, just like most hockey players are. And then, of course, right across the street from the hotel, pretty much, there's a Chick-fil-A, and it's my favorite one in North America, God's Chicken. And I just, I don't like fast food much, but I like Chick-fil-A. So then, after we grab some Chick-fil-A and go and get checked in, just get settled in the room and, hang up your clothes and all that jazz. go on the computer, make sure that take one last look at the rosters and whatnot. You usually get the rosters about 2 weeks to a week before the actual event. And of course, you kind of want to mesh that up with all the kids that you've got questionnaires from, because surprisingly, not all of them will reach out to you and tell you that they're going to be there. Maybe they don't think that we're going to be there. Maybe they just it just doesn't cross their mind or whatever. But if there's kids that we want to look at and they're going to be at that tournament, it's absolutely vital that I, schedule around that. I'll do an awful lot of that. Do some last double checking of my schedule, check your emails, because quite often tournament organizer will be like, hey, pad 6 at North England Sports Centre has a refrigeration problem, so we're going to be moving all those games to X. And especially in the summer, that happens even more than in the winter, right? So, later on in the evening, when things are kind of quieted down and parents are, in the hallways or in one room having a beverage, I might sneak down to the front desk and ask the person there very quietly if they know what teams might be staying at that hotel. That's more in the wintertime, and that's super important. It's always great to know what teams are staying there, because the last thing you want to do is talk to a kid or be planning to talk to a kid and then run into them in the elevator and be completely unprepared. So, if you know who's staying there, then you know who to watch out for, good, bad, or otherwise.
Research. You got so much
absolutely.
research on your plate.
There's a ton of research, believe me. After that, pack it in for the night. By that time, it's probably 11 o'clock at least, and set the alarm for 5 a.m., get up in the morning and then again check emails. Ironically, there'll be some kids. There's always one or two of them that'll send you an email at midnight saying, "Hey, just wondering if you're going to be at Beantown because I'm playing tomorrow morning at 10 or whatever." So you want to make sure that you get those taken care of as well. Breakfast at the hotel usually opens around 6. You're down there right when they open the doors, pretty much, and then get all your stuff together, head off to the arena, and then get settled in for your first games. Usually they'll start, like some tournaments start 7:30, 8 a.m. They'll be starting up. So you want to be there, and we'll talk a little bit later about warm-ups and whatnot. The very first games of the day might not be great for parents or even for the kids, but it sure is for the scouts that can actually be there and concentrate on a warm-up from the moment these kids are walking out of the dressing room. And, again, we'll touch on that a little bit later. But ultimately, with every big tournament, I mean, most of the events we go to have anywhere between 30 and 80 teams in one weekend, which makes it a very, very busy and hectic weekend, and nothing ever turns out perfectly. Heaven forbid someone gets a serious injury, and so you've got one pad that's way behind schedule, etc. I go and I'll spend probably 4 to 6 hours planning my entire viewing schedule for the entire weekend. I have never had it where it went exactly as planned. It just doesn't. So you gotta be ready to make changes on the fly, right? So we'll go out there and I'll probably watch a minimum of 25 games in a day, dividing my time between the prospects that we've vetted already, that have filled out questionnaires, that have shown great interest in our school, and also making sure that especially teams or players that might be from Nebraska or California or whatever and may not make it to another major showcase that we would go to in the entire year, I better have notes on them, because if they just randomly go and throw in a questionnaire and I don't have another opportunity to see them, coach is going to be asking me for my opinion, and without having any notes, there is no way that by Sunday I'm going to remember what I watched on Friday without notes.
Yeah, that's a lot to take in. A lot of steps, a lot of people. I mean, I love watching hockey. That's a lot of games to get through. Do you ever get tired of it?
You gotta love hockey. Well, I'll tell you that, for instance, when I do Stony Creek in Hamilton, which is, there's a U18 weekend and a U22 weekend, and it's 2 weekends back to back. By the time the U22 weekend is over, I'm pretty much done watching hockey for a couple of weeks. I've pretty much had my...
What time of year is that?
That is mid-September.
Okay, so it's like still away from like the Stanley Cup playoffs, so you're not all like afraid to watch
that. It's actually before even we get
see.
into NHL exhibition games.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Okay.
the U18s is like right after Labor Day, and then the U22s is right after that. And it is the mecca of all tournaments for girls that want to get recruited, because they play at 2 rinks that have 4 pads each, called Mohawk and Gateway. And there is rarely less than 100 schools in attendance. It's crazy. Wow. If you're going to watch a game and you're not there for the beginning of it, you're probably standing on the staircase outside of the arena and that there and trying to get a decent view, because there will be some games where there will be 20 or 30 coaches and scouts watching one game. You can certainly see the first year players. Yeah, they're usually pretty nervous when they realize how many people are actually watching.
That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, and there is on the third year kids too, right? Because I mean, if they haven't signed yet, and maybe something's fallen through or they haven't garnered a ton of interest, then they're like, okay, pressure's on. I gotta perform this weekend because I gotta get some schools checking me on their list, you know. Mm-hmm. So, but you know, going back to Beantown somewhat, of course, we would always wear like our branded clothing and whatnot. Other things that'll throw everything off for a loop will be, you'll have a parent, you'll be rushing to get to another rink, and a parent will pull you aside and be like, hey, just wanted to ask you this about your school or whatever. And you're not going to say no, because who knows who first of all, who their kid is, and second of all, you certainly don't want it out there that, hey, you know, that guy is rude. Like, don't even bother, right? So, you know, we're all about relationships, and if I have to stop and if I have to miss something because I'm talking to someone, there, you know, as the saying goes in every business, the person who's right in front of your face is the most important person that minute. Right? Yeah. So, you know, on any given day in Beantown, I'll meet with maybe 2 or 3 of our top recruits. You know, talk to a ton of parents, and probably not leave the rink until 9:30 or 10. Chances are I might end up back at Chick-fil-A for about 15 minutes if I get there before it closes, and then get settled in, and then you're right back into the emails, because you're going to have a bunch of emails from kids or parents that saw you that day, new questionnaires, kids that you met with that some of them put together some really great follow-up emails and whatnot, asking more about our conversation or what the next steps are for them and this sort of thing. I mean, when I meet with them in person, we go through so much, and there's so many distractions. I mean, you'll be talking to a kid, explaining to her things about school, and 2 of her teammates will walk by and nudge her in the arm or something like that, and then, you know, then they just totally lose focus. But it happens. Like,
squirrel.
Squirrel, you got it. Yeah, you know these teenagers, right? Their phone rings, someone texts them. But I mean, and then you know, day 2 on the Saturday is very similar, where, you know, you'll try to hit all the other kids that you hadn't seen on the Friday. Again, if all things go according to plan, which never happens. And then, you know, by the end of Saturday, I should have pretty much everything done. Sunday morning, you're kind of leaving for just that 3 to 4 hour window of, oh my gosh, I was supposed to see this kid here and here. I missed both times, but they're playing this morning, thank goodness. And you're off to that rink. I mean, when it's a tournament or any kind of showcase that has multiple rinks involved, and Beantown does, unfortunately, even though they've got that huge 8-pad arena that's quite something, there's still 6 or 7 rinks in outlying areas, and some of them are as much as 25 minutes away. So you've really got to be on your toes and planning, because, again, if it's a kid that you might not see for the rest of the year, you're really kicking yourself if you miss them.
They need a scout shuttle.
Yeah. We need a transporter like Star Trek.
Exactly. That too. Phase in, phase out. And I mean, most kids have no clue what we're talking about right now, though. So there's another digression. How long do you have to research these kids ahead of time? Like, how long are they on your radar before you're even looking at them?
Well, we're not looking at them seriously until they go to the effort to put in a recruiting questionnaire. Quite often they'll start out with a phone call to an email to our head coach before they even put in a recruiting questionnaire. And then, you know, once they've even put in an email, our staff will immediately go and look them up on Instat or Huddle or whatever, and see if we can find some video on them to see if they are at the level, and then you can usually get a pretty good idea too sometimes by just the team they're playing for. If they're playing for a AAA team and whatnot, then there's a very good chance that we're going to have some interest at least, and certainly at least take a look at them. But once they've got the recruiting questionnaire filled in, then it's my job, because of course that goes right into my phone. I get it within a minute of them pressing send.
Yeah.
And then it's my job to send them back. If they mention on the questionnaire, because it is one of the questions, what their major is, I will send them the link to that major. I will send them a whole bunch of stuff about our team and about our school and everything, so that basically they get a really good idea right off the hop of everything that we're all about. And we basically put in that email that, hey, if you look at all this and you're still very, very interested and you consider us one of your top schools, then the next step would be either we see you in person, or if that's not possible, then perhaps we arrange a group phone call with you, the coach, preferably your parents are on the call. We always encourage parents to be part of everything. Mm-hmm. I mean, these young ladies, they have a completely different perspective than a hockey mom, right? Yeah. What matters to you is different than what matters to them in a school, and all those perspectives are important, and ultimately parents, for the most part, are the ones that are going to be writing checks and that, so that's important too.
With social media being so prevalent and stuff, do you find kids are starting to get creative and like tagging schools or whatnot to get extra looks, even if they've already put recruiting forms or maybe don't even know that recruiting forms are a thing? Like, do you find that's becoming more of a way to try and get schools to notice them?
Absolutely. Yeah, you'll quite often see where one of their teammates gets committed and has their Instagram or whatever with their commitment, and then they'll share that commitment and they'll start following that school and that. I mean, hey, we've got Instagram, we've got X, we've got Facebook and all that. And pretty much every school worth their salt does. So it's pretty easy to follow any school that you want. And, we look at that too. Our coach has access to all that. And I might say, hey, you know what? So-and-so pulled me over at Beantown in the hallway and asked me something about Liberty and da-da-da-da. And next thing you know, he'll text me an hour later and go, hey, you know what? She just followed us on all of our socials.
Nice.
Are you going to see her again later on today? Or have you seen her play yet? And so we'll have those types of conversations.
Okay.
When I'm at one of these major events and our head coach is still back in Virginia, we're pretty much texting like schoolgirls the whole day too.
That's funny. So day 2 is done, and then you're preparing for day 3. It's almost over. What does that look like?
Day 3, again, you're getting up a little bit later in the morning because usually they don't start the games as early. Now you might be getting into playoff rounds or consolation games. At least that's the way it is at Beantown. At some of the other ones, it does still start quite early. But, you're only planning on, like I say, hitting some of those games that you might have completely missed a team or whatever for whatever reason. And then usually you're trying to start heading home by noon. There's really not much else to see. By then you should have at least caught a little bit of pretty much every team's playing that you wanted to be able to see. And then of course when you're in Boston, what else are you gonna do? There's got to be some kind of a perk to this sort of things. You just go down near the wharf and get fresh lobsters and fresh oysters to bring home. My wife has the pot on full boil when I roll in the driveway, and we're having a great dinner when I get back. So that's her favorite part about me going to that tournament.
Nice. That's awesome. So then what does all that follow-up look like for you then? Like, how much follow-up and work do you have when you get home?
Well, usually on the Monday, that's kind of a recoup day. And then I'll have kind of a debriefing with our head coach. And sometimes some of the assistant coaches will be in on that call or whatever as well. There's usually some specific targets that we would have been looking at on that weekend. There'll be some new ones that I want to either, say, hey, this one needs to go, on the list at square blank kind of thing. And then, we'll just go through all that sort of stuff. And then, of course, I do write down anything that I commit to when I'm talking to a kid in person, which will quite often be, hey, you know what? The next step is we want to do that phone call. So if we email you early this week, do you think you can be ready for a phone call later on in the week, or is next week better? And I'll have that conversation with the coach that we need to set up a phone call with Mrs. X and take care of that. And then, of course, once the phone call has gone through, and quite often Chris will go and have them on like a Zoom call sort of thing and literally walk them through the rink and walk them through the dressing room and that sort of thing, so they get a really good feel for things. And if they are absolutely loving everything they've heard and we're at the top of their list, and Chris likes everything that goes on in the phone call. I mean, he likes to ask some questions off the cuff and maybe some things that might throw a girl for a bit of a loop. But that's kind of part of the plan. There's reasoning behind everything that we do. Yeah. And then if all goes well after that, then he will have them reconvene a few weeks after, have time for the family to discuss and whatnot. And then if they come back and say, yeah, we are very serious, then that's when we'll schedule a campus visit. And we do campus visits different than a lot of schools do. And I like to say, and I don't think that I'm wrong in saying this, that basically 9 out of 10 kids that come to our campus are like, they want to sign on the spot, because our campus shows very, very well. Our rink is on campus. We've got gyms, training rooms, right down to ice baths and everything right in the rink. So it's serious business what they do down there, and the parents get a good feel for it too. I mean, as a parent, it just is going to sound silly, but one of the things that really mattered to me when we went down there for our campus visit was that normally kids will be buried in their phones, and just to have these kids walking upright and saying good morning and whatnot, and noticing there is not a piece of garbage next to a garbage can there. Like, the kids are respectful, and that made all the difference to us. The fact that it was like, okay, our kid is going to be going somewhere where these kids are respectful and seem to be well brought up.
Yeah. Seem to be, right?
Seem to be. I don't. You can't bulk in 18,000 kids in one sentence, right?
But it showed well, so that's good. Yeah.
It did. It really does show well. Quite often, some schools will have a kid in for less than a day, meet the coach, maybe do a good campus tour and whatnot. We actually immerse them in like 2 to 3 days, where we will hook them up with one of the current players. Let's say they want to be in nursing. Well, another one of our players is in nursing. Great, you're going to class with her, and you're staying in the dorms with one of the current leaders, one of the captains or assistant captains. You are going on the ice at least twice, because of course, with us being in Virginia, usually the first day you're jet lagged, and usually you're not going to show that great on the first day, but you'll usually show an awful lot better on the second day. So we try to get you on the ice twice, and meet with all the coaches and everything. And once you've had your visit, they give you a genuine explanation of where they see you fit and what you can work on and everything like that, send you home. And then if we're really interested, then it's like, okay, 2 weeks to a month later, let's do it. Let's reconvene. Let's do another follow-up. And if you're ready to sign and we're ready to sign, then let's get it done and let's get you into a Lady Flame uniform next year.
Nice. And now, as the scout, do you start to finish there with them, or once they do their visit, you're kind of like the coach's hands and they go from there and you're back to following?
No, you're pretty much hitting the nail on the head. Like, once they get past the phone call, then that's pretty much where I'm at. And and our coaching staff, it gets that warm transfer off to them. And the next time they hear from me, hopefully, if I've done my job right, will be me emailing them, congratulating them on their commitment.
That's awesome. It's great relationship building too.
It is,
Oh, huge. Like, I don't know, I can't remember if I said this the first time that we were on together, but when my kid played, I was watching for one kid to be playing. Now there's probably of our roster of 22 to 24 players, there's probably 10 or 11 kids that I've had direct involvement with. So now I have like 10 or 11 daughters that I'm cheering for every time I watch team play, right? Because they're mine.
Yeah, I totally get it. Well, it's not that I get that. It's just I love hockey so much that I love watching other kids play too, not just my own. Like, when my kid's not on the ice, I do concentrate on all the other players. When she's on the ice, I probably don't notice anyone else. But so I can admit that. I totally can admit that. But I love watching other kids play too. And I'm like, oh my God, they're gotten so much better. Like, it's just exciting to watch other kids too. So I went to her daughter's lacrosse game on the weekend to check it out and support them, because I know it's not hockey, but whatever. So I did it. And one, I thought it was a badass sport I could totally play, but I can't run, so there's that. But I was like, I could coach this sport and cheer these girls on. That's how passionate I am about children and cheering for children. So, I mean, I know it wasn't hockey, but I could give it a go.
You wouldn't have to try skating.
I know. I don't have to like fall on children and maim them. I'm 6 feet tall. It hurts to fall. Over. I can just, run a bit. Throw balls at their head. It's fine.
That's what I was going to say. Lacrosse is like hotter in the rink and like rough.
It's like running hockey, I see. Like it's still very physical. It's still very fast paced. But you just don't have skates on.
I got into a little bit of a thing on the interweb with somebody, and I wasn't trying to get into beef. I was just like, I do think lacrosse is a little bit rougher than hockey, and they're like, I don't know how you could say that. I'm like, well, I have never seen somebody two-hand stick someone over the helmet repeatedly in one game and have them not be ejected. So that's just me. But,
there's a lot more physical.
But maybe I'm wrong.
Allowed in lacrosse.
So, I digress again.
One question I had, do you have any tips or suggestions for both the player or the parents to get ready for those
conversations?
The calls, like kind of after you've watched them at one of those showcases? Is there something they can do to prepare for those calls that they might get afterwards?
Sorry, Brittany, so for the phone call or for the in-person meet after playing?
For the phone call.
For the first phone call?
The first phone call,
I mean, obviously, the most important thing is know something about who you're talking to. And that, I mean, if you're going to go on a phone call and you don't even know the location of the school or anything about it, and you're going to ask the most basic questions over there, then that doesn't show really well. Mm-hmm. But I mean, for the most part, by that time, you've had plenty of time to be able to research the school. The questions that would normally come up from a parent is, hey, what's this going to cost me? Do you in fact have the major that she wants, and if so, how is that dynamic working, especially with the hockey program as well? Because of course, at the end of the day, like there's quite often where some schools will have late night practices and they don't have a rink on campus, so you're rolling in after midnight. And then you've got a class at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. Is that really going to work well, right? Like at the end of the day, we want our kids to be educated. The hockey is the fun part. And so, those sort of dynamics, the money part, the school part, what are her live-in options? When is she allowed to be moving off campus? Mm-hmm. What's your coaching philosophy? Obviously, is a common one. What about when you're on the road? What about her safety? What about what about meals? What about accommodations? All those sorts of things. And for the most part, those seem to be the most common questions. Putting your guys' selves in that position. If there's something else that you hypothetically you're on a call right now with a coach from a school on that, is there another question that you would ask?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think I would. You've done this before. I have not.
I've not. Yeah. I mean, I sent my child away. I did. I didn't ask the questions.
I wish I had.
My husband asked all the questions. I was happy he made the team. And we said, see you later. Make good choices and don't be shitty. Those are our two advices that we say generally.
It's costing us a lot of money. You better not suck.
Yeah. Make good choices. Don't be shitty. I should put that on a shirt. That is pretty much.
Put it on the pod for the.
That's our first merch
on the social media.
That's gonna go on some merch for sure.
We are monetizing this thing, aren't we?
Yeah, we're working on it. I will say, Trisha, the first time she yelled out that I heard her tell her daughter, I love you, don't be shitty. It was my favorite thing I'd ever heard, and now I say it every time my daughter goes to play. And we were outside a rink in Vancouver for a girls' team, and there was a mom and a grandma outside the rink, and so we dropped them off, and we're both like, I love you, and I yelled, don't be shitty, in this like sweet, nice tone. And Grandma tried real hard not to pee, laughing. And I was like, good, I've made someone's day and they didn't yell at me. So now I do it quite often across parking lots.
Oh, you're bringing me way back to when my daughter was like in U14 or U16 and she'd be playing at multi-pad complexes, and apparently she wasn't a bad-looking young lady. And so quite a few of the young boys would see that she was good looking and a hockey player and wanted to talk to her while she was supposed to be getting into the rink. So we started where I would drop her off and I would yell, "Boys are dumb," and she would yell back, "Throw rocks at them," and that was our thing.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah, I will definitely say boys are dumb. Yeah, they ask for snaps after they try and target a girl during a game, and I think that's not an appropriate time. Boys, if you're listening, maybe do better, make good choices. And maybe don't yell through the dressing room walls asking for snaps. That's also good advice.
Bizarre.
It's boys are dumb. I love them, but they're dumb. Yeah, I know. It's a good off-topic, genuine thing to say. So,
So warm-ups.
Yeah, let's talk about warm-ups. You said, like we said, we'd get back to that one. So you said you like to talk or watch the warm-ups, and we'd circle back to that one. So go.
Yeah, definitely. Whenever the opportunity presents itself that you can be there for the beginning of the warm-ups, or even right when they're coming out of the dressing room, you can learn a lot. You can see if they're actually focused on the game. Are they preoccupied with some random other little thing like shooting a piece of tape around or something crazy like that? Really, are they a screamer? Like, are they the ones that are just like rah rah rah, it's so loud that it's a little ridiculous? Or are they a shrinking violet? Or are they just kind of a silent leader and everyone follows their lead? Hey, every personality has a place somewhere. But is it something that you're looking for or not, right? And part of being prepared in advance means, are you wasting that 3-minute warm-up stretching the entire time or looking for your backup stick or whatever? Or are you actually making good use of your time and getting out there, building up a sweat, practicing your edges, and making sure that those skates are sharp and that Dad didn't go and get them done by his buddy. And, at the end of the day, when we're watching U19 girls, they really better have the warm-up down pretty much flawlessly. Especially if it's mid-season and they've had plenty of time to get used to their coach's system and whatnot, they better not be running into each other. They should be able to make and take a pass. They should be able to shoot at the goalie and know better than to deke the goalie in the warm-up or to try and pick corners and everything. Like, what we want to see is, hey, you have no pressure right now. You're literally just going in on a 2-on-0, passing back and forth and everything. You really should be able to do that by the time you get to this level. And if you don't, that does throw up a bit of a red flag.
Absolutely. Personalities show through in those moments when they think no one's watching, right? Like, That's what I look for sure.
Yeah.
And that's so true, because it's amazing that even at these showcase tournaments, they know that there's going to be tons of schools watching them and everything, but some of them don't turn it on until the puck drops.
Yeah.
And a lot happens before the puck drops. And Absolutely. I can assure you that if you talk to 10 other guys who do the same thing that I do, or ladies, every one of them would say the same thing. Yeah, you can learn a lot more.
Yeah.
Do you have any sort of mental checklists during live games? Like anything that you're looking at in particular when you're looking at a specific player?
When you're looking at a specific player, you're looking at the whole package. You're looking at the on-ice skills, like we just talked about. Having all the basics down, having great edges. In the girls' game, you're talking there's not full contact, so skating is everything. You certainly want to have someone with a high hockey IQ, and a huge thing that is fairly rare to find is a girl who can really fire the puck. Like, there's not enough young ladies out there that focus on their core strength and their arm strength and whatnot to really be able to fire the puck. If you're just throwing muffins into their bread basket and whatnot, then that's not going to get you, high into, on a high-end college team. Yeah. The scoring is low enough in girls hockey. You need girls that can fire the puck. The goalies out there are fantastic.
Yeah,
a lot of high-end college goalies at one point played against boys who, by the way, can fire a puck.
They sure can.
It's where you've really got to have your shooting down. But then, there's also the, I guess you'd maybe call them the intangibles and whatnot. How are they as a teammate on the bench? I love certain rinks where you can stand and you're literally over the bench and you can hear everything that's going on and see everything that's going on, because that'll tell you a lot about a player too. If they are yapping at their teammates for making a bad play, or
Mm-hmm.
throwing their stick, or slamming the door when they go
Yeah.
in, or coach is trying to tell them something and they're obviously not paying attention or listening and think that they know better and everything. Like, again, that says a lot. We talked about on the last pod about my 2-minute rule, where you take a bad penalty, or you score a fantastic go-ahead goal or whatever, you need to be back in the zone in 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
You've got 2 minutes to shake that off. And if you can't shake it off and you're going to let that just grind your gears for the rest of the game, the game's in your head, and that's not going to work very well.
Yeah, mental focus is key for sure. You need to be able
Absolutely.
to.
I mean, even when we look on, you look on many of these Facebook groups and everything, there's lots of people out there that are selling mental strength training and everything now. Mm-hmm. That was something that even when my daughter was playing, which was only like 8 years ago, and that wasn't a thing.
No, but it's amazing how much it can help, right? Like, and the biggest takeaway I took from our last episode is how talking negative to yourself or saying, don't do this, don't do that. Really, you're just reinforcing a negative habit, right? And by just getting that out of there, it's just amazing what a difference that can make. And that was a huge takeaway for me. I've been telling my kids that all week now. So
no, and
don't tell yourself.
No, but that really is great advice, right? Like, I mean, there's nothing to fear but fear itself. And if you don't go out there and take a chance and you just play it careful all the time, you are going to be what we call a vanilla player, where there is nothing special about you because all you want to do is not make mistakes. Well, you know what? The best players in the world make mistakes. What did they say about Michael Jordan out there? Like, he missed more shots than anybody ever in the NBA.
Yeah, because
he took them all. He didn't play it safe. And girls nowadays, they sometimes some of them worry too much about playing it safe and doing something wrong. And no, don't worry about it. I have no issue with a kid who goes and makes mistakes as long as they're actually trying something.
Yeah.
You want to go and try the between the legs deke and everything there? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Just don't do it every time.
Yeah. Showcase some other skills that aren't solo skills and pass. Do that. Pass. Do you look for passers? Here's one thing I want to say, because I know, like, it's something, obviously we're still in minor hockey for a lot of things, but it's the biggest thing I hear in the stands is parents screaming pass at other
hogs.
Yeah. Is that something that you look for? Do you actually look at like a player that will only be a solo player or a player that is a team player?
Well, you know what? That is one of the biggest differences in boys and girls hockey, is that in boys hockey, we find that they have no issue with going solo, just going rogue, going down the ice and forgetting anybody who's beside them or whatever and firing the puck. On the girls' side, the pendulum sways the other way. They overpass and never shoot. And sometimes they will have an incredible opportunity alone in the slot, fantastic pass, goalie's not even in position, and they go and pass it off to someone in the corner. Exactly. And, so honestly, I more look for these kids that are willing to take the shot, because they tend to be the exception more than the rule. I mean, everybody wants to pass and make everything perfect, just like Coach showed us in practice. No, shoot the puck.
Yeah, from the girls' side, then when they only pass, yes, you want to see more of a solo mission. But on the opposite side, like when thinking boys hockey, then sometimes you're like, just pass, because you overhand.
You're like, it's not a one-man show out there.
Oh yeah.
You have teammates.
Yeah. So it's funny because there are so many differences between them. Like,
yeah. Is it Ovechkin that says, "With the shots comes the goals"?
Yeah.
I can't remember who said that.
No. Yeah, I still just keep thinking about like Marchand, knowing that he's good at something. Like, he might not have been the greatest, but he knew his role, and I love it. So like you say that too, like find something you're going to be good at and just do it. And he's that type of player, and I do appreciate that. How do you balance live scouting with video review? Because obviously you can't look at every player you want to look at live, like at a showcase and stuff, and players in Nebraska, obviously, that can't make it all over the place, or in the prairies somewhere that, well, I guess the prairies are a bad call because they have rinks everywhere, or pond hockey. But how do you balance that?
Well, for me, because as we've talked before, and that this isn't my main job, I actually have a normal 9 to 5, and then so for me, it's predominantly the live scouting in person. I do probably more of that than our entire rest of our staff combined. Just because Virginia geographically is so far away from where all these major tournaments are. Probably the closest one of them is probably the PIP tournament in Pittsburgh. So I would do mostly the in-person. However, again, on our questionnaires, and I can't speak for every school, but on our questionnaires, there is a spot for you to plug in your YouTube link, your NCSA profile, whatever. And then, of course, that gives us an easy opportunity to find some video on you. However, you can find pretty much any kid playing double or AAA on Instat as well. And if I find a kid or they filled out a questionnaire, I've gone and seen them live, I'm really happy with them and whatnot, that's when the rest of our coaching staff will be like, okay, let's pull her up on Instat and everything, and let's see if we see what you're seeing. But call me old school, but there's so many things that you see in person that you don't see from a highlight reel.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
and you can be fooled by good video sometimes, but again, like you were saying, sometimes it's not possible to do it any other way, and so it's certainly better than the alternative of nothing. And you can look up kids' stats. You can do the video scouting part. You can still do the phone calls and whatnot. And then if it appears that they're going to be someone that you might be interested in, the worst thing that can happen is that you bring them to campus and everything, and it doesn't turn out.
Yeah. Well, with all the different live streaming services where teams now film their games, do they give you have you gotten access like that so you can watch a live game and you're not looking at a highlight reel?
On Instat, you can choose to watch entire games.
Oh, okay.
And I believe it has that on Pixelot too.
Okay.
And so you can basically, what's great about Instat is that you can go in and see just a kid's goals, just a kid's assists, just their shots from the point, just their shots from the slot,
cool.
and it'll be all edited. You can watch entire shifts of that player, not necessarily the whole game, but entire shifts of that player. There are times when you can just go in there and log into a team and go and watch entire games. As well as there's quite a few teams that'll use LiveBarn or whatever, or even do their own video and then post it on YouTube, and you can watch entire games that way. But again, when you're doing stuff like that and it's not clipped for that player in particular, it is a bit of a challenge to watch an entire game on video, because if you're trying to follow number 14 and they've got a long ponytail and so does 7 other players on the team that's covering half their number in that, that great play that I just saw, I can back it up 10 times. I still can't tell if that's the kid I was watching.
Yeah, that's hard.
So it happens, right?
Yeah, technology has its perks and its downsides.
Roughly how many times do you need to see a player before you feel confident in your evaluation?
Well, for me, if it's somebody who we're looking at cold, we'll say, my preference is to see them at least more than one weekend. Optimal is to see them at 3 different showcases. And there's a couple of reasons for that. First of all, and you guys have probably seen this from your own kids, sometimes they just have a crappy weekend, and you don't want to go and count them out. If everything else tells you that they should be someone who's in your wheelhouse, and you show up and you're like, oof.
Yeah.
But it happens. And then, a month later, you go and see them in a different city against different opponents, and who knows what happened in their personal life before that last tournament, but all of a sudden it's like, this is not the kid I saw a month ago. This is more like what we were looking for, right? And then if they can do that twice out of 3 weekends that you're watching them, and you're probably watching them even at a big tournament, if they're one of your top prospects, you're probably watching them twice, at least 2 periods of 2 games, we'll say, and that gives me the confidence to go back to our coach and say, yes, this one gets my stamp of approval. I really think that we should be moving forward with her recruiting process. And when we don't get to do that, when I don't follow my own rules, that's when every once in a while I'll get bit. Luckily, I haven't steered them wrong too many times. I think we've probably had maybe 2 or 3 kids come to campus that he didn't see the same way I saw.
Yeah, and that happens.
Yeah.
So Yeah.
Over 8 years, I'm allowed to have a couple of.
Yeah, right?
If I was perfect, then I'd be like scouting the NHL or something.
Exactly. How important is it to understand league pathways as a parent, like the ACHA, U Sports versus NCAA on the parent side? Like, I'm just curious, like when they're going into it, how important is it for them? I threw you a curveball because I was going to ask you on the scout side, but
that's fine. So as a parent, you got to realize that you've got in the NCAA D1s, you've got U Sports, you've got the NCAA D3s, you've got ACHA, which has on the women's side a 1 and a 2. And then so everything has their own little nuances, right? I mean, if you're the best of the best, the cream of the crop, and you're going NCAA D1 and you're going on a full ride, then what you're looking for from your own kid is, hey, you know what? We have this fantastic opportunity, but is my kid a good time manager? Is she good under pressure? Probably is, because otherwise she'd probably be playing that level, frankly. But, at the end of the day, if you're going on a full scholarship to an NCAA D1, then they've got an awful lot riding on you. And, sometimes school's going to take a back seat to hockey, because they're the ones that are footing the bill. So, there's that consideration. U Sports is for Canadian kids, and some kids like to be closer to home. Some kids are homebodies. In the current political climate, some parents might not want their kids going to the States. And so U Sports will be the only option that they'll consider. So there's that to consider as well. NCAA D3, you're not getting athletic scholarships, but there's still plenty of academic money. There's still lots of opportunity. There's some D3 teams that'll beat bottom end D1 teams. There's some great programs out there in the D3s, and same thing goes with ACHA. I mean, I think I might have mentioned before that we used to play some D3 teams. They don't want to play us anymore, because when we beat them 11-0 and 10-0, and it doesn't look good on their school, so they don't invite us back. But so D3, you've got a huge variation in D3 where you can have some really high-end programs, or you can have some programs that are treated more like, the hockey isn't that important. They're playing mostly teams that are relatively close to the school, and the kid has a more opportunity to focus on academics. And that's very similar to the ACHA model, where, like, for instance, we have a great nursing program, and we have our own planes. So one of our best players is in aviation, and she probably could have gone to an NCAA D1, but when she found out that we had our own Cessnas for her to fly, she was like, "Yeah, where do I sign?" And but the dynamic with that, of course, is that you might get 2 hours notice that you're going up in the air, and you might get that notice when you're walking into the dressing room and being like, "Hey, coach, can't practice today. I got to go like right now." And that happens, and so at certain levels that's acceptable. At other levels that might not be acceptable. It's just it's a fine line of what exactly is right for you as a parent, for your child. What are your goals? What are their goals? And how are you going to make this all work, right? And that we go through some of that in the course that I made, but also at the end of the day, it's taking stock of your own family and what we're going to take out of this and how we're going to have the best experience ever.
What kind of traits might get a player on or off the short list quickly?
Well, on the list, honesty, integrity, time management, respect, openness to new ideas, systems, and our culture. Off the list, bad attitude, use of substances that are A, not legal, or B, you're not old enough to be using. And just overall character. I mean, we want to build women of strong character that show well for our school long after they graduate. Right? We have no use for someone who's there to party and not focus on the hockey and on the school aspect. That has to be paramount. And ultimately, and I bet you every college coach out there would tell you the same thing, there are kids with phenomenal skills out there, but they wonder why every school takes a flyer on them, and it's because of some of these things that I just mentioned, like, if you're going to be difficult in the room, unliked by your teammates, a constant challenge and a constant headache for your coach, there's every coach out there has done that at least once and regretted it at least once.
Yeah. No one wants to be burned by that often. Yeah.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, you bring in a player who's a real menace in the dressing room and whatnot. You may very well find that you've got kids that are going and putting themselves in the transfer portal the following year because they don't want to be with that particular person. Yeah. And those might be players that are more important to your team and your culture than that one particular individual. Yeah. Then you've really,
set bad culture.
Done yourself in.
Yeah. Exactly. What's one thing you'd tell parents looking at pathways for their kids listening right now?
Well, probably exactly what we just went through.
Yeah.
Know where your kid lines up and be honest. Get an honest assessment from a third party if you have to. At the end of the day, do we really want to be able to say my kid plays such and such a level and be able to boast proud of that, but yet they haven't played a game in 2 years? That's no fun. That's terrible for their confidence for a young lady and whatnot. And who wants to do that? Those are the kind of kids that you often see in the transfer portal because, they were taken as a bubble player and never got the opportunity to play. They'd be far happier to maybe play a division lower and have some impact on a team. And again, we were talking about mental health earlier. Yeah. That's huge. Like, you're so excited to be chosen by this school and everything there, only to find out that you're never going to play. That'll crush you.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to balance out your development versus ego, right? That's hard.
Do you have any exciting plans or any new courses on the horizon?
Well, one of the things that I found was that when people were reaching out about our recruiting course, and I had never even thought this was going to be a thing, but a lot of goalie parents reached out and they said, is there any modules in your course net there that are specifically goalie centric? And although it's a good overview for everyone, there isn't anything that's specifically centered on goalies or forwards or D. And then so might end up kicking around, if I get many more questions in that regard, might end up kicking around making one that's specifically tailored to goalies. I played goalie in junior, and so did one of our other scouts. And so we do have quite a bit of goalie knowledge, we'll say, and goalies are a little bit different. So, maybe they need their own course.
I think that's an excellent idea, actually, just because it is different. They're, sometimes I think they feel like they're in their own world, whether there's one or two of them on the team, and they are kind of separate, but they're integral to the whole team. But not everyone understands what it's like to be a goalie, right? So,
or to be a goalie parent.
Or be a goalie parent. I couldn't do it. Nope, I'm crazy enough as it is. I know my limit. I play within it. Just kidding. But and I don't mean that in an offensive way. I love goalies. I love goalie parents. I usually am friends with goalies and goalie parents.
There never seems to be as much for goalies as players, as far as like training and development and that kind of stuff. They
always get left out.
Yeah,
so I feel bad. They need more. They need more attention. So you better do it, Steve.
Okay. Noted.
No pressure.
Goalie parents out there listening to this, reach out and force me to.
Yeah. I'm sure I can stick a few on you. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for giving us the inside scoop. We totally appreciate it, and thanks for coming back.
No worries. My pleasure.
Yeah.
Great to see you guys again.
Yeah. As always, it's been a pleasure having you on the show with us.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us this week on Pucked Up Hockey Moms. We seriously appreciate you listening, laughing, and surviving the hockey mom life right alongside us.
Whether you're in the stands, stuck in carpool, or hiding in the rink bathroom for 5 minutes apiece, we see you and we're right there with you.
This episode was proudly brought to you by AAA Hockey Recruiting, your go-to for player development, showcases, and getting noticed at the next level.
Whether you're aiming for junior, prep, or NCAA, they've got the tools, the know-how, and the hookup. Check them out at AAAHockeyRecruiting.com and tell them the Bad Mom Squad sent you.
Until next time, stay loud, stay proud, and stay a little bit pucked up.